Hi everyone, welcome back to Planet Dirt. This is my backyard garden, and today you're doing another garden tour. It is July 1st, so we are in the thick of it right now. Some stuff has not started producing, but some stuff has, which I'm very excited about. I've had a couple of mini harvests, which is awesome, but when we get outside, I'll show you all of the squash and stuff that's getting ready, getting out there. We're going to start in the greenhouse today. So I have a lean-to greenhouse that is about 25 feet long, I believe, and the beds in it are about 3 feet wide. So we're going to start at that end, and I'll first show you the big oopsie of the season. Let's get started. All right, this is the first oops, y'all. So these are, I think there's 6 sweet potato slips that I planted in this bed. And I knew this was going to happen to some extent, right? They're vines. They're going to go crazy. But it is very hot in this greenhouse. It is very humid in this greenhouse, which is not very typical for my climate. These are doing insanely well and a little too well. It is only July 1st. These have a couple of months more growing time to go, and they are already trailing up. They're trailing out and into the walkway. I don't need to get in that corner, which is why I put them over here. I knew it was going to do this at some point, but I honestly have never had good luck with sweet potatoes because I've had them outside and it's very dry here, so they didn't do too well. But so I didn't know that it was going to do this well this quickly. And so here we are. It's only July 1st. We got a couple more months. And mistakes were made, y'all. So, moving on. We have a row of eggplant in here. The eggplant is looking good so far. I don't see any fruit or flowers on it yet. The bottom leaves were getting attacked by roly-polies, so I put out some beer traps. That seems to have helped a lot. I haven't seen a lot of roly-polies since I did that, so hopefully I saved those. But this is the state of the tomatoes. Let me see if I can get a better angle on this. These are my tomatoes, and they're looking fabulous. Every single one of my tomato plants has little, oh, there's a yellow jacket. Oh, goodness. Every single one of my tomato plants has baby tomatoes on it. And I'm super excited. So there's some right here. There's some back there. I think these are Romas, I believe. And then this one is a dwarf variety. And I didn't realize that just because the plant is a dwarf, the fruit is not. So this is actually a big slicer. And it's been growing for like 3-4 weeks now. It's hard to see in there. But let me see if I can lift this up. Look at how big that boy is. It's kind of huge. And so the plant is doing lovely. I need to come in here and trim off some of these. Like I said, it's a little more humid in the greenhouse than it is outside. So I have to trim and tend to my tomato plants a little bit more than I do outside. But that is okay. We are all right with that. Look at this banana legs tomato plant, though. This thing is prolific. My goodness. I have a bunch down here. None of them have ripened yet. I'm waiting on them to ripen. But there's a bunch down there, and then more and more and more as I go up. And then, coming over here, these are 2 ground cherry plants, which this was also a mistake. I will not be putting ground cherries in the greenhouse next year, or any year going forward. I need to come out here. You can see a couple of ground cherries have fallen and they're ready to be harvested out here. So I've pruned this thing back so many times. It's ridiculous. And it just keeps growing. So I don't know. I honestly don't love ground cherries that much. And it's starting to impede the tomatoes and everything else I have in these beds. And so I might just rip it out. I know, that sounds horrid to say, because it looks so good and it's doing so well, and I really hate to rip out things that are doing well. But the fact is, I just don't like ground cherries enough to be giving it this much space in my greenhouse. This is prime real estate, okay? And so I don't know if it deserves prime real estate. Right next to it, I have my onion and pepper beds. And this one is super exciting. So these onions still have about a month left to go, so they're starting to bulb out, which is really exciting. But look at this Hungarian wax pepper. It is prolific. This is my first producer, and so far it's the most prolific as well. It has several peppers on it that are ready to pick, and I'm gonna probably make some salsa and then roast a couple just to see if the flavor differs. So with that one, I'm a little scared with that one, I'm not gonna lie, because on the package it said that it was a sweet pepper, but then if you read the description, it said that it was almost inedibly hot if you let it mature. And so I don't know what a mature one is. I don't know if that is mature, or if I let it go a few more weeks it would be mature. They look the exact same as they did a couple weeks ago. So, like, the color's not changing. I don't know. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see. My husband really likes spicy things. So worst case, I'll make him some salsa and he'll be so happy. But me, I can't stand anything spicy. So hopefully I'll get to actually taste it without dying. So we'll see. All right, next up in this bed, we have more onions, jalapenos. The jalapenos are also pretty prolific. I love jalapeno plants because, yes, they are a little spicy. Yes, I'm a wimp, but I love the flavor of jalapeno, and you can use just a couple and still get that flavor without being overwhelmed by spice. There are also some Tabasco plants in the back. And there's a habanero plant back here as well. The spicier the pepper I have found, the slower the plant grows. So I'm not terribly worried about the fact that they're so tiny yet. So this is my shishito, and it's got a couple on it that are ready to harvest, which is super exciting. And then behind that, I have a bell pepper and a cubanelle. The bell pepper has one little pepper on it, and that's it. That's what I'm saying with the other ones. Like, that's why I don't grow a lot of bell peppers, is because they're just so slow to produce. This one's a sweet banana. That one already has a couple on it. Jimmy Nardello already has a few on it. The plant is actually falling over because under the weight of the peppers. And then this one's a California Wonderbell, and it's just not doing much of anything right now. So that, in a nutshell, is why I like growing sweet peppers of different varieties, because the standard bell pepper, sure, it's versatile. You can use it in a lot of things, and it's a good old reliable, but the plant itself just doesn't produce for me. I've never had a bell pepper plant produce more than a few bell peppers for one plant. Whereas I can grow a shishito plant and get several flushes of 10 to 15 over the course of a season. And, oh my goodness. Oh, I'm so squeamish. Okay, so that is why I grow several different varieties. I have a couple of varieties of bell pepper in there, and I planted them this year just to see. I like to try again every few years when you're better at growing in general, just to see if it was you or if it was the variety or what it was, right? I got a couple of varieties of bell pepper in my Am I Gardener grab bag. I threw it in there, see what happens. And so far, again, I'm just not impressed with the regular bell peppers. All right, so I am showing you the good, the bad, and the ugly over here. So these are my beautiful flowers. These are bachelor buttons and aster. They look beautiful. They're about to tap out, but they have more blooms coming. But behind it, these are my potatoes, and my potatoes got eaten by some kind of pest. They look awful. And honestly, they were probably going to start dying in the next couple of weeks anyway, but they look kind of gross. And so I might just dig them out and call it a wash. I don't know. Depends on how much time I have, whether I will get around to taking care of this now or just wait and see what happens. On the other side of my greenhouse, I have a couple of flower pots. That's a blueberry that I moved out of the direct sun because it was getting scorched because it's really hot here. This is a blackberry plant that I've had for a while. Doesn't produce a ton, but it is producing some, which is awesome. I've had it for a couple of years. Honestly, I might transfer it into the ground in the fall because blackberries are doing really, really well in the ground here. So, I don't know. It has thorns on it, though. So maybe I don't want it over there with all my thornless blackberries. I don't know. We'll think about it. Just a thought. All right, and these are my 2 blueberry bushes. I had several more blueberries in the ground, and the soil quality over here is just not great. And so I should probably amend it and start over if I'm going to. But these ones, they're starting to produce little berries, so that's exciting. It's everywhere. So this is what I was talking about with the blackberries. So this is, I believe, 3 blackberry bushes. There's one over here, one over there, and then one in front. And every one of them is producing like crazy right now. So if you look on each one, there are just tons and tons of berries that are growing. Super exciting. But all of them are doing really well. All right. This is the state of the green stalks right now. We had a couple of cool days. About 2 weeks ago, I want to say, and we got another flush of strawberries because of that. So there's a couple ripe and there's more coming, which is super exciting. And then there are some runners starting to grow. I need to come out here and stake that into another cell so that it has somewhere to grow. And then this is the green stalk that we just planted out together a couple weeks ago. So these are all the bush beans. Look, they're looking fabulous. And where there aren't bush beans in here, there is basil growing. So these are, I believe, all mammoth basil that I put in here, ready to grow. And then at the top over here, there's some cinnamon basil that's also growing. All right, this lovely bed over here is where I just pulled out the garlic a week and a half ago or so. And I just put a bunch of my pots over here. One, to cover up the soil. I also mulched it pretty heavily to stop the weeds from growing, or at least try to. And then I put the pots over here because this side of this back bed right here does get watered from the sprinklers. So it's kind of a 2-for-1. I get to water them a little less frequently because they're pots. It's dry here. And so I'll take all the help I can get. And then back here, we have some absolutely lovely grapes. So these grapes I put in the ground, I think 1.5 years ago now, these 2, and they're looking pretty good. They got insanely big this year. I was not expecting them to grow as big as they did. They didn't do much last year because they were just getting established. And so I didn't worry about it too much. And then they kind of took off. So there's not a lot of grapes on them this year. There's a couple. If you look right in there, there's a few in there. It is mighty windy. My goodness. So there's definitely a few grapes in there, but there's not a lot. But they're on these little metal trellises, and we really need to get in here and redo this entire trellising system for these grapes because, as you can see down here, they're kind of getting out of control. And we have plans to do that in the fall, but basically all I'm doing is trying to make it through this season right now for the grapes, and then we'll deal with them once the frost comes and we don't have to worry about losing any actual fruit off the plants. All right, so in front of that, we have the Egyptian walking onions. which are so interesting. I love growing these. They're so cool. This one has a couple of different little walks on it. I don't know what they're called, but this one looks really cool. Look at how big that one is. That one's huge. It's crazy. So I did kind of move them this way because the garlic was over here. This bed doesn't get a ton of sun. Like we are, it's almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon and we're almost tapped out for how much sun this bed gets. So, and we're in the middle of summer, so that's not a lot. So I tried to put it that way so that it would go this way and hopefully fill in the rest of this bed. I don't think I'm going to put garlic back here again next year because, like I said, there's just not a lot of sun going on back here. And while the garlic did okay when it was down there, the farther in I got and the less sun they got, the smaller the bulbs got. So that's a plan. That's what we're doing. In here, I did want to show, these are also strawberry plants that are back here, but these are a decorative strawberry. I mean, you can eat those strawberries, but they're just pretty small. But they have really pretty little pink blooms, and they trail really nicely back here. So again, this whole bed used to be just a mint bed. You can see the mint popping up in there, and a random weed, but ignore that. But I'm just trying to put things back here that are perennial, that will take over the weeds. Things that I want to be there, not just things that will grow here. I will move this really quick and show you the saddest little attempt at rhubarb that you have ever seen in your life. So I put the rhubarb back here because it gets so unbelievably hot here, and rhubarb hates heat. So my thinking was, if I put it back here, it gets less sun, therefore it'll be a little cooler, and the heat of the day won't hit it. It's a great plan, but less sun means slower growing. So I started those from seed in the spring, and they're growing. They're just growing unbelievably slow. So we'll see what happens. Those are supposed to be perennials here, but if it doesn't get big enough to store any energy in the roots, then there's nothing to perennialize. So I don't know. We'll see. We experiment and we see what happens. All right, this is a closer look at the grapes, and these look absolutely gorgeous. Look at all of those grapes in there. There are so many. These things are plush with fruit this year. And I'm super excited because last year, I've told this story a couple of times now, but last year I went on vacation, literally the exact week where everything ripened, and I should have been harvesting, and birds and lizards and all the critters in my backyard ate them all. So this year I'm going to be diligent, and I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to be out here every day when we're getting close. And I'm going to make sure that I get the fruit off of these vines. All right. And then in front of these vines, we have a pineapple sage plant. We have oregano. There's a rosemary, lavender, and thyme. So the weeds are kind of taken over back here, but my plan in dealing with a lot of these weeds is just what I said. I'm just going to keep planting things that I want to grow back there. I'll take care of the weeds as I see them. But my goal is to fill it with things that I want there. And then hopefully the things that I want will just take over and the weeding will be minimal. All right. So we have made it over to the in-ground side garden. So this garden is 24 plus 8 is 32. So this one is 32 feet long. I just counted the beds. I know how long they are. So this one is 32 feet long and about 3.5 feet deep. So I gained a lot of growing space this year by putting these raised beds over here. I used to just be planting within a maybe 1.5 foot strip all the way down this, and this greatly widens that. which is super exciting. So I've been able to plant a lot more than I normally would out here, and it's definitely paying off. All right, so we're going to start at the far right end. That bed had the elephant garlic in it. I replanted all of the garlic nodules that were on it back into that bed. They will perennialize. Hopefully I'll get them back next year. But if not, I'll have time to rethink. But as you can see, the vine that is all over my garden is already trying to creep its way into that bed, so I need to get in there and get rid of that. But this one is super exciting. This is my first squash right in here. That is my first squash. And I don't know if it's actually been pollinated yet. It doesn't look like it has. But that is a female flower, and I'm super excited. So this one is the green scallop zucchini. Green scallop squash, is that what it's called? And usually the scallop squash are the ones that the squash bugs go for the absolute most. I put borage right next to this one, and it's just barely starting to bloom. You can see it. And there's flowers and asparagus and some artichoke back there as well. This is also kind of my experiment bed, and I just happen to have some free space in there, so I threw the squash plants in there because I had extras. But it's working out great. I don't usually get a lot of scallop squash because of the squash bugs. This year, they haven't been as prevalent. They are still being a pain, but not so much that they're damaging my plants. So, moving on to the next bed, all of my zinnias are starting to bloom. Super exciting. My sunflowers are starting to bloom. I have a yellow one right there, and I have the velvet queen right there. Look at her, standing all pretty and tall. Absolutely gorgeous. These are mostly cherry tomatoes. I also have a pear variety right in there. And these I just came through and trellised up 2 days ago, if you can believe it. I wouldn't believe it if someone told me that. So I swear I'm not lying. I did, and they already look like a hot mess again. But if you look in here, up close, you can see these things are absolutely loaded with tomatoes. So when I got back here and was trellising and pruning, I was actually shocked at how many tomatoes were back there. Oh, you know what? I'm going to show you a mess before we move on to the next bed. All right, y'all, don't judge me. So when we're gardening, we think about things, and we can't think about every single little thing there is to think about, or our brains would explode because there's just too much. So back here, this is the back of the trellis, and there are tomatoes back here. You can see a couple of them right there. There are tomatoes back here, but the vines are just going crazy because I wasn't pruning this backside. Because to be honest, I forgot it existed. So the lazy part of my brain is telling me to just let it go and see what happens back there. The A-type personality side of my brain is saying, get back there and clean it up because you're probably going to have tomatoes back there that you're never going to see because they're just hidden away in that little jungle back there. So I don't know. Time will tell whether I have the time, energy, and motivation. Those three things are, having all three at the same time is always a gamble. So if I have all three of those at the same time, then I will get back there and take care of it. If not, oh well, I'll get tomatoes off the front of it, I guess. Or I'll just go on a little journey back there and see what I can find when I find it. All right, so we are in the next bed over more flowers. I have some amaranth over here, which is growing beautifully. The first year I grew amaranth, I grew it in the greenhouse, and it grew so big and tall that it shaded out everything else. I didn't know how big amaranth got. And then the next year, I was like, oh, this is huge. Let me put it in my front yard in the little garden bed. And that garden bed has terrible soil. And so, with no nutrients in it. And so, my amaranth was like this big. It was really sad and pathetic looking. So, this year, I put it in good soil, out of the way, where it wouldn't take over anything. So these are mostly slicing tomatoes over here. I think, again, there's one pear variety over here. But you can see they're starting to grow. I got little tomatoes on most of these plants. Super exciting. And then in front of them, I have a couple of squash plants. So these are some Black Beauty and some early prolifics. And these ones are not doing too well. I tried replanting these ones, and some critter of some type came in here and pulled up my seed and ate the inside of the seed and left the shell just right on top of the soil, just mocking me. So I don't know what ate it, but I have a really hard time direct sowing here because the seeds just get eaten by something. Might have been a bird. Who knows? On to the next bed. This is the corn. I am super excited about this corn because it is July 1st and the corn is taller than me. I'm not a tall person, but it's still taller than me, which is super exciting. As we go further into the end of the bed, the corn varieties get smaller, but I think it's because they're different varieties. They have different maturity dates. And so this one and the one next to it especially, these ones are just gigantic and it's super exciting. All right, so this is another oopsie that I made this year. So back behind the corn, I don't even know if you can see it through the corn, those are tomatillos that are growing up there that, I mean, I know they're gonna produce tomatillos, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to get to them because there's corn in the way, and then there's a giant squash plants in the way. So this one is absolutely huge. This one is some kind of pumpkin, I think. And you can see it's starting to get flowers on it, which is really exciting. But there's a lemon squash in the middle here. There's a couple of vining pumpkins that are going to go up the trellis, hopefully, in the back there. And then these are also pumpkins in the front here. I think these are Connecticut field pumpkins, which they're all growing beautifully in this bed. These are much bigger than the sad little squash that are in that bed. But I don't know that I'm actually going to be able to get to the tomatillos without damaging some plants. So we'll see what happens. These ones this is the really pretty variety of corn. This is the Japanoka, I think, striped corn. And just look at the variegation on these leaves. It's absolutely beautiful. They're purple and white striped. Some of them are both purple and white stripes. They're absolutely gorgeous. They're so pretty, and they're doing really, really well too. Around all of the bases of the corn, you can see a better angle in here. There are climbing beans around all of the corn, and they're starting to actually trellis up the corn, which is super exciting. The last time I tried to do this, the corn was basically almost done. Like it was, I don't know, like up to here. And it had already produced its stalks by the time the climbing bean even cared about trying to climb up it. So I'm super excited that it's this early in the season and they're already making their way up the corn. All right. In this bed, we have more squash and pumpkins and cucumbers. So in the back here, we have a couple of climbing squash, and those ones hopefully will go up the trellis. The cucumber looks like it's almost ready. I can probably go in there and see if I can attach it to the trellis. It might be tall enough now. And then these ones, I think this is a bush variety, and then these two are trellising varieties. Well, trailing. So these two I'm going to train to come out of the lattice and into the yard because they're going to get insanely big and I don't want them to coil around inside the bed. So in the middle here, there was an acorn squash, and then right next to it, I had a pumpkin of some kind, volunteer, and it was a very, very large variety. So it's starting to trail that way, which is fine because I do have space that way for it to trail. And then worst case, I guess I can force it to go back into the yard around the bed. But yeah, that one was a surprise, and I'm just going to hope that it does well. The cucumbers are finally starting to pop up and do okay. The Armenian long cucumber already has some flowers on it, which is exciting. And then down here, we have this sad little corn. And I don't even know what kind this is because the dog came in here and stomped through all of my tags. I think this one is just the standard sweet corn, but I don't know. I guess we'll find out when we get corn or not. But this side of the bed, this like foot and a half towards the end, just looks really sad. So I came in here and I just fertilized yesterday. I put more fertilizer in here, and it was a mix. It had the fast acting stuff, and then it had the slow release as well. And I gave an extra dose over here just to help in case it was nutrient deficient, which it looks like it is. These corn stalks are also way more yellow than the ones over there. So we shall see. Alrighty, y'all. Thanks so much for coming along with me today. I hope you enjoyed my garden tour. It's looking absolutely fabulous on the first day of July. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and a great holiday, and I hope I see you next time. Bye.